My daughter's new husband forgot his cell phone in my house. It rang, and on the screen appeared a photo of my wife, who had died 5 years ago. When I opened the message, my heart almost stopped. Look, I'm going to level with you right off the bat. Retirement is a scam. They sell you this fantasy about golf courses, afternoon naps, and finally having time to read all those books collecting dust on your shelf. What they don't tell you is that retirement is actually just you, alone in a house that's too quiet, making coffee that tastes like disappointment, and wondering why the hell Netflix keeps asking if you're still watching. Yes, Netflix, I'm still watching. What else am I supposed to do? Take up knitting. It's Sunday morning, and I'm standing in my kitchen wearing sweatpants that have seen better decades, trying to brew a pot of coffee that doesn't taste like I filtered it through an old gym sock. The machine gurgles and hisses like it's personally offended by my existence, which honestly, fair enough. I've been taking out my general life frustrations on this poor appliance for the better part of 6 months now, ever since I realized that being retired doesn't make you feel free. It just makes you feel old and useless with more time to think about it. My daughter Claire is visiting with her shiny new husband, Mason. They've been married for 3 months, which in modern marriage years is basically still the honeymoon phase where they haven't discovered each other's truly annoying habits yet. Give it time, kids. Give it time. Mason is one of those guys who looks like he was assembled in a factory that specializes in producing successful young professional mannequins. Perfect hair that probably costs more to maintain than my mortgage. A smile so white it could guide ships to shore, and cologne. Jesus Christ, the cologne. The man wears so much of it that I'm pretty sure it's less about smelling good and more about chemical warfare. It's the kind of scent that screams, I drive a leased BMW and have opinions about cryptocurrency. Every time he walks into a room, my nose stages a small protest and my eyes water a little. Dad, you really should think about updating your kitchen, Claire says, eyeing my ancient coffee maker like it personally offended her interior design sensibilities. She's standing by my counter in some outfit that probably cost more than my first car, looking around my house like she's mentally redecorating it into something that would appear in one of those home magazines where everything is white and nobody actually lives there. What's wrong with my kitchen? I ask, even though I know exactly what's wrong with my kitchen. It's stuck in 1997, just like my music taste and my understanding of TikTok. Nothing. If you're running a museum dedicated to the Clinton administration, Mason chimes in, flashing that perfect smile. I want to like him, I really do, but there's something about a man who uses hair gel on a Sunday that makes me deeply suspicious of his character. They stay for exactly 47 minutes. I know because I checked my watch 3 times. And then they're off to brunch or yoga or whatever the hell young people do on Sunday mornings that makes them feel superior to us old folks who just want to drink coffee in peace and watch birds argue over the feeder in the backyard. Love you, Dad, Claire calls out, giving me a quick hug that smells like expensive perfume and youth. Drive safe, I yell back, which is the official dad translation for, I love you too, but I'm emotionally constipated. The door closes behind them, and I'm left standing in my kitchen, coffee in hand, ready to embrace the peaceful chaos of doing absolutely nothing for the rest of the day. I'm thinking maybe I'll watch that documentary about penguins or finally figure out what the hell a podcast is when I hear it. Buzzing. Not the good kind of buzzing, like bees making honey or whatever. The annoying, persistent, modern-day anxiety-inducing buzzing of a cell phone having a complete meltdown. I look around my kitchen like the buzzing might be coming from my refrigerator achieving sentience, and that's when I see it. Mason's phone, sitting on my counter like a glowing rectangle of forgotten responsibility. The screen is lit up like a Christmas tree, notifications piling up faster than my credit card bills. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I know I should just call Claire and tell her Mason left his phone. That would be the mature, respectful, boundary-respecting thing to do. But here's the thing about being 63 years old and retired with nothing but time on your hands. Curiosity doesn't just kill the cat. It also murders your sense of privacy and good judgment. I walk over to the counter, telling myself I'm just going to pick it up and set it somewhere safe. That's it. Just being a responsible adult. But the second my hand touches that phone, the screen lights up even brighter, and suddenly I'm staring at something that makes my brain short-circuit like my coffee maker on a bad day. My late wife's face is staring back at me. Laura, 5 years dead. still smiling in that photograph like she just figured out a new way to make me pay for that time I forgot our anniversary in 2003 and tried to cover it up by saying I was planning a surprise, when really I just forgot, because I'm an idiot. My hand freezes. My brain goes into full panic mode. The coffee cup in my other hand starts to shake, and I'm pretty sure I've stopped breathing, because that's definitely Laura's face on Mason's phone. And unless my son-in-law has developed some seriously disturbing hobbies involving my deceased wife's photos, something is very, very wrong here. Then a text message pops up, and I swear to God, my heart stops completely. The message reads, "Tuesday again, same time. Can't wait to hold you." The coffee cup slips. Coffee goes everywhere, splashing across my counter, dripping onto the floor, probably soaking into my sweatpants, but I don't even notice because I'm too busy staring at this phone like it just told me the meaning of life, and also that meaning is absolutely terrifying. My dead wife, texting my daughter's husband, making plans for Tuesday to hold him. I stand there in my kitchen, covered in coffee, holding my son-in-law's phone, staring at my deceased wife's smiling face, and I realize with the kind of clarity that only comes from absolute chaos that my peaceful Sunday morning has just gone completely off the rails. Either Mason has been sexting my dead wife, or someone is pretending to be her, and honestly, I'm not sure which option is worse. All I know is that retirement just got a hell of a lot more interesting, and I'm going to need more coffee. A lot more coffee. So here's the thing about human nature that nobody wants to admit. When someone tells you not to do something, especially when that someone is your own conscience, you're going to do it anyway. It's like when the doctor says, "Don't Google your symptoms," and then you immediately go home and convince yourself you have a rare tropical disease, even though you haven't left Ohio in 3 years. We're all idiots, basically, and I'm about to prove it spectacularly. I'm standing in my kitchen, still dripping coffee like some kind of caffeinated water fountain, holding Mason's phone like it's a live grenade, telling myself in my most authoritative internal voice, "Do not unlock this phone. Whatever's on here is none of your business. Put it down. Call Claire. Be a mature adult about this situation." You know what I do next? I unlock the phone. Obviously. In my defense, and I'm really reaching here, I need to know if my dead wife is somehow involved in whatever fresh hell is happening. And the only way to know that is to completely violate my son-in-law's privacy and probably several federal laws in the process. If this goes south, at least I'll have an interesting story to tell my cellmate. The phone asks for a passcode. I stare at the screen, watching it blink at me expectantly, and I'm about to give up because what are the odds I'm going to guess Mason's passcode on the first try? Then I remember something Claire mentioned during one of her rambling wedding planning sessions that I'm mostly tuned out while pretending to care about napkin colors. Mason wanted their wedding date to be on Claire's birthday because he thought it was romantic. I type in Claire's birthday. 6 digits. May 14th. The phone unlocks. Rookie mistake. Mason. I mutter to my empty kitchen, feeling simultaneously proud of my detective skills and deeply disturbed by how easy that was. This is the guy who works in cybersecurity or finance, or whatever the hell he does that requires business trips and expensive suits. You'd think he'd have better password hygiene, but apparently not. The home screen loads, and I'm immediately assaulted by approximately 7,000 notifications. This man has more apps than I have functioning brain cells right now. There's Instagram, Twitter, something called Slack that sounds vaguely threatening, and at least 4 different email accounts. Who needs 4 email accounts? That's not organization. That's paranoia with extra steps. But I'm not here for Mason's questionable app collection. I'm here for answers about why my dead wife's face is appearing on his phone with flirty text messages. So I navigate to his messages with all the confidence of a man who has absolutely no idea what he's doing, but is committed to the bid anyway. I find the conversation. It's listed under the contact name L. Just the letter L. Not Laura, or mom's name that would be super creepy, or even a last name. Just L, which is either supposed to be discreet or Mason has the creativity of a brick. I tap on it, and the profile picture loads. There she is again. Laura, my wife, wearing that floral dress she absolutely hated. I remember that dress. She wore it exactly once to some charity function I dragged her to, and she complained the entire night about how it made her look like a couch from a retirement home. Her words, not mine. The fact that this is the picture someone chose is already weird because anyone who actually knew Laura would know she wouldn't be caught dead in that dress twice. Poor choice of words, considering. I start scrolling through the messages, and let me tell you, this is where things go from weird to, I'm definitely having a stroke, and this is all a hallucination territory. The text read like something out of a romance novel written by someone who's never actually experienced romance. I miss your laugh. You still smell like lilac. Can't wait to see you again, my darling. My darling. My darling. Laura never called anyone darling in her entire life. She called me jackass when I left my socks on the floor and idiot when I tried to assemble IKEA furniture without instructions. But darling? Never. Not once. Not even on our wedding day when she was legally obligated to be nice to me. I keep scrolling, my thumb moving on autopilot while my brain tries to process what I'm seeing. Either Mason has developed a hobby in necromancy and figured out how to communicate with the dead via text message, which, honestly, if he could monetize that he'd make a fortune, or my late wife has been networking from the afterlife and has somehow figured out how to use a smartphone despite being, deceased. The messages go back months. Months. This isn't a recent thing or some weird glitch or a random coincidence. This is an ongoing conversation between my daughter's husband and someone pretending to be my dead wife, and I'm standing in my kitchen covered in coffee, trying not to have a complete mental breakdown. I scroll deeper, half expecting to see a Venmo request for ghostly rent or maybe a link to my wife's PayPal, because if we're going full paranormal here, might as well throw in some supernatural financial transactions. But instead, I find something that makes my blood run colder than the coffee currently soaking through my sweatpants. Photos. Not just one or two photos that could maybe be old pictures someone dug up from Facebook or whatever. I'm talking dozens of photos. Current photos. Photos that were definitely, absolutely, 100% taken after Laura died, because I was at her funeral and watched them lower a casket into the ground. And unless she pulled off the greatest magic trick in human history, she was definitely in that casket. I tap on the first photo, and my hands are shaking so badly I almost drop the phone. It's Laura, or someone who looks exactly like Laura, standing in front of a coffee shop I don't recognize. She's wearing clothes I've never seen before. Modern clothes. A jacket that's definitely from this decade, not from 5 years ago when she died. Her hair is styled differently, shorter than she used to wear it. She's smiling at the camera like she doesn't have a care in the world, like she isn't supposed to be 6 feet under in Greenwood Cemetery. The timestamp on the photo, 3 months ago. I swipe to the next photo. Laura, or Laura's doppelganger or Laura's ghost who somehow learned how to use Instagram filters, sitting at a restaurant. Different outfit. Different location. Timestamp, 6 weeks ago. Another swipe. Laura at a park. Laura in front of a bookstore. Laura standing next to a blue-painted fence that looks weirdly familiar, but I can't place it because my brain is currently experiencing the mental equivalent of a computer blue screen of death. Every photo is timestamped after her death. Every single one. And they're not grainy or blurry or the kind of photos you could explain away as manipulated or photoshopped. These are clear, high-quality photos of a woman who looks exactly like my wife, existing in the world, living her life, years after I buried her. I lean against my kitchen counter because my legs have decided they're done supporting my weight, and I'm pretty sure I'm either having a heart attack or the worst anxiety attack of my life, or possibly both simultaneously. My mind is racing through possibilities, each one more insane than the last. Option 1. Someone is catfishing Mason using my dead wife's identity, which raises the question of who has access to recent photos of a woman who's been dead for 5 years, and also why they're pretending to be her to seduce my idiot son-in-law. Option 2. Laura somehow faked her death, has been alive this whole time, and is now having an affair with our daughter's husband, which would make her both alive and the worst person in human history. Option 3. I'm currently having a psychotic break and none of this is real, and I should probably call someone professional to help me. Option 4. I'm in a Netflix true crime documentary, and this is the part where the creepy music starts playing and some narrator with a really serious voice says, and that's when everything changed. I stare at the phone, at my wife's face smiling back at me from beyond the grave, and I realize with absolute certainty that my peaceful retirement just became a full-blown investigation into either supernatural phenomena or the most messed up catfishing scheme in history. Either way, I'm going to need a lot more coffee and probably a lawyer. Maybe a priest too, just to cover all my bases. I don't sleep that night. Not a single minute. I just lie there in bed, staring at my ceiling like it might suddenly reveal the secrets of the universe. Or at the very least, explain why my dead wife is apparently texting my son-in-law about holding him on Tuesdays. The ceiling offers no answers, which is typical because nothing in my life has been straightforward since Laura died, or didn't die, or whatever the hell is happening here. By the time Monday morning rolls around, I look like something that crawled out of a discount horror movie. There are bags under my eyes that could qualify as luggage. My hair is doing this weird thing where it's simultaneously sticking up and falling flat. And I'm pretty sure I forgot to brush my teeth because my mouth tastes like I've been chewing on old gym socks. Retirement was supposed to make me look relaxed and rejuvenated. Instead, I look like the before picture in an antidepressant commercial. I've spent the entire night alternating between staring at Mason's phone and Googling things like, can dead people text, and how to tell if your wife faked her death, and signs you're losing your mind. The internet, as always, is spectacularly unhelpful and has only succeeded in convincing me that I'm either dealing with an elaborate hoax, a supernatural phenomenon, or a brain tumor. Possibly all three. Mason's phone is still sitting on my kitchen table, mocking me with its existence. I keep expecting him to call or text from another phone asking where it is, but apparently my son-in-law is so attached to his devices that without one, he just ceases to function as a human being. Either that or Claire hasn't let him come up for air long enough to realize he's missing a vital organ. I'm on my fourth cup of coffee, the kind that tastes slightly less like regret than yesterday's batch, when I hear a knock on my door. It's that specific kind of knock that only family members do. The one that's less, may I come in, and more, I'm already coming in. This is just a courtesy warning. Sure enough, Claire breezes through my front door like she owns the place. All sunshine and newlywed energy that makes me want to both hug her and tell her to tone it down because some of us are having existential crises over here. Morning, Dad, she chirps, holding 2 cups of what I assume is overpriced coffee from that place downtown where they charge you $8 for what's essentially hot bean water with delusions of grandeur. Brought you a latte. Mason told me you still drink that cheap stuff from the grocery store, and I thought you deserved better. There's so much I could say to that. I could point out that my cheap stuff has been getting me through the morning just fine for the past 40 years. I could mention that I have Mason's phone and the contents of said phone have fundamentally altered my understanding of reality. Instead, I take the latte because I'm not a complete idiot, and free coffee is free coffee, even if it does cost $8. Thanks, sweetheart, I say, trying to sound like a normal father and not like a man who spent the entire night spiraling into paranoid theories about his deceased wife's secret life. What brings you by? Can't a daughter just visit her dad? She asks. But she's already looking around my living room with that expression she gets when she's mentally cataloging all the things she thinks I should update or throw away or generally improve about my life. Also, Mason left his phone here yesterday. He's been freaking out about it. You know how he gets without his technology. Oh, I know exactly how Mason gets. What I don't know is how Mason gets when his father-in-law confronts him about potentially having an affair with a dead woman. But I guess we're all about to find out. Yeah, about that. I start, setting down my fancy latte, and trying to figure out how to phrase, your husband might be sexting my deceased wife, in a way that doesn't make me sound completely insane. I found his phone and, oh thank God, Claire interrupts, already heading toward my kitchen where the phone is still sitting like a ticking time bomb of family drama. He's been driving me crazy. You'd think he lost a limb the way he was carrying on about it. She picks up the phone, and I watch her like I'm observing a bomb disposal expert who doesn't know the bomb is about to explode. She glances at the screen, sees all the notifications, and just shakes her head with this fond, exasperated smile that makes my heart hurt because she has no idea what's on that phone. I swear, he's probably got 100 work emails by now, she says, tucking the phone into her purse. Sometimes I think he's married to his phone more than he's married to me. This is my opening. This is where I should tell her everything. Show her the messages, the photos, the evidence that her husband of 3 months is either involved in the world's most disturbing catfishing scheme or is somehow in contact with my dead wife. But when I look at her face, so happy, so blissfully unaware, I can't do it. Not yet. Not until I know more. Claire, I say carefully. How well do you actually know Mason? She laughs. Actually laughs. Like this is the most ridiculous question I've ever asked. Dad, I married him. I think I know him pretty well. But before you met him, I mean. His past relationships, his. Dad. She cuts me off with that tone that all daughters master by age 16. The one that means, I love you, but you're being ridiculous and I need you to stop. I know you worry. I know you think nobody's good enough for me, which is sweet, but also a little overprotective. But Mason is great. He's successful. He treats me well. He's just a little forgetful sometimes. Like with his phone. Right. Forgetful. About his phone. That he uses too. I stop myself before I say something I can't take back. To what? Claire asks, her eyebrows raised in that way that means I'm about 3 seconds away from getting a lecture about letting go and moving on and not being so paranoid about every guy she dates. Even though she's literally married to this one, so my paranoia seems pretty justified at this point. Nothing, I say, because I'm a coward and also because I need more information before I blow up my daughter's marriage over something I might be completely wrong about. Even though every instinct in my body is screaming that I'm absolutely right about this. Just, Mom's gone, kiddo. You know that, right? The second the words leave my mouth, I regret them. Claire's expression shifts from amused to concerned, and she sets down her coffee to come over and put her hand on my shoulder like I'm some fragile old man who can't handle his grief. Dad, of course I know that. We all miss her, but you can't live in the past forever. Mom wouldn't want that. She squeezes my shoulder. She'd want you to let it go, to move on, to maybe even think about dating again. Not that I'm pushing, but Mrs. Henderson from your book club keeps asking about you. And, Claire, I'm fine, I interrupt, because if we start talking about Mrs. Henderson and her aggressive casserole delivery schedule, I'm going to lose my mind. Really, I'm fine. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. She studies my face for a moment. And I can see her doing that thing she does where she tries to decide if I'm actually fine or just saying I'm fine because I'm a stubborn old man who doesn't know how to ask for help. Eventually, she seems to accept my answer, or at least decide that arguing with me isn't worth the energy. Okay, she says slowly. But if you need to talk, or if you're feeling lonely, you know you can call me, right? Anytime. I know, sweetheart. Thank you. She gives me a hug, grabs Mason's phone from her purse one more time to check if he's called her, then heads for the door. Love you, Dad. Try to get some sleep tonight, okay? You look awful. Love you too, kid. And thanks for that confidence boost. She leaves, and I'm alone again with my thoughts and my theories and the growing certainty that I'm about to uncover something that's going to make everyone in my family wish I'd just stayed retired and minded my own business. I sit down at my laptop, the one my grandson set up for me last Christmas and taught me how to use with the patience of a saint, and I pull up YouTube. If there's one thing retirement has taught me, it's that YouTube has a tutorial for literally everything, including, apparently, how to extract data from someone else's phone, which is definitely illegal, but probably justified under the circumstances. 3 hours and several easy step-by-step videos later, none of which were actually easy and all of which assumed I had more technical knowledge than I actually possess. I managed to connect Mason's phone to my laptop. I'm pretty sure I violated at least 4 different terms of service agreements and possibly a federal law or 2. But at this point, I'm committed to finding out the truth even if it means spending my golden years in prison. The photos download, and I start going through them one by one, looking for anything that might explain what the hell is going on. Most of them are boring. Mason's lunch, Mason's car, Mason taking selfies with Claire that make me want to throw my laptop out the window because nobody needs to see that many filtered photos of themselves. But then I find it. One small detail buried in a photo of Laura standing in front of some trees, smiling at the camera like she doesn't have a care in the world. Behind her, barely visible in the background, is a fence. A blue-painted fence. That exact specific shade of blue that I would recognize anywhere because I painted it myself 20 years ago during a weekend when Laura decided our lake cabin needed more personality. The cabin, Laura's favorite place in the world. The place where we spent summers and anniversaries and quiet weekends when we needed to escape from the chaos of regular life. The place I sold 6 months after her funeral because I couldn't stand going there without her, couldn't stand seeing her favorite chair empty or walking past her gardening tools, or remembering all the memories we made there. I sold it to some couple from out of state. Signed the papers. Watched them drive away with the keys. Said goodbye to that chapter of my life. So why is someone who looks exactly like my dead wife taking photos there? And who the hell is living in my old cabin? I sit back in my chair, and my stomach growls because apparently I forgot to eat anything today except coffee and more coffee. I should probably have some of that leftover lasagna in the fridge, the one Claire made last week that's sitting in there like a ticking time bomb of dairy-based indigestion. But food can wait. Sleep can wait. Everything can wait because I just found my first real lead, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let this go now. My wife's favorite cabin. The blue fence I painted. Photos time-stamped after her death. Someone's using that cabin. Someone who looks exactly like Laura. And I'm going to find out who, even if it kills me, or gives me heartburn. At this point, both seem equally likely. I've made a lot of questionable decisions in my 63 years on this planet. There was that time I bought a timeshare in Florida that turned out to be a swamp with delusions of grandeur. The year I tried to cut my own hair to save money and ended up looking like I'd lost a fight with a lawnmower. That incident with the home brewery kit that nearly blew up my garage. But calling Frank DeLuca at 7 in the morning to recruit him for amateur detective work might actually top the list. Frank answers on the fourth ring, sounding like he gargled with gravel and chased it with sandpaper. This better be good. I was having a dream about fishing and I actually caught something, which never happens in real life. So you just ruined my only source of accomplishment. I need your help, I say, pacing around my kitchen like a caged animal who's had way too much coffee. Something's going on with Mason, and I think my wife might be involved. There's a long pause on the other end of the line, long enough that I check to make sure the call didn't drop. Finally, Frank speaks, his voice cautious like he's talking to someone who might be having a mental breakdown. Buddy, Laura's been gone for 5 years. I know that, Frank. I was at the funeral. I gave the eulogy. I'm aware of the situation. Then what are you talking about? So I explain everything. The phone, the messages, the photos, the blue fence at the cabin. I lay it all out while Frank listens without interrupting, which is unusual because Frank normally interrupts everything, including movies, church sermons, and his own sentences. When I finish, there's another long silence. Then, so either someone's catfishing your son-in-law using your dead wife's identity, or Laura faked her death and is shacking up with Mason, or you've completely lost your mind and I need to drive you to the hospital. Those are our 3 options here. I'm not crazy, Frank. That's exactly what crazy people say. I should know. I arrested plenty of them. Frank retired from the police force 3 years ago after 30 years of service, which he now spends complaining about how the force has gone downhill and watching crime documentaries so he can yell at the TV about all the mistakes the detectives are making. But okay, let's say you're not crazy. What do you want me to do about it? I want to stake out Mason. See where he goes on Tuesdays. Follow him to the cabin if that's where he's going. I pause, then add, I need backup. Someone who knows what they're doing. I spent 30 years busting drug dealers and breaking up bar fights, Frank says dryly. The most cybercrime I ever investigated was some teenager stealing his neighbor's Wi-Fi password. But sure, I'll help you spy on your son-in-law. Not like I had anything better to do. My wife's been trying to get me to paint the garage for 6 months anyway, so this gives me a legitimate excuse to avoid it. We agree to meet at my house on Tuesday morning. That gives me a full day to prepare, which I spend doing absolutely nothing productive except Googling how to tail someone without being noticed and watching YouTube videos about surveillance techniques. Most of them seem to assume I have access to professional equipment and unlimited funds. I have neither. What I do have is a pair of binoculars I bought in 1987 for birdwatching and never used. A car that makes suspicious noises when it goes over 40 miles per hour, and determination bordering on obsession. Tuesday morning arrives with all the enthusiasm of a root canal. Frank shows up at my door wearing what I can only describe as a disguise that looks like it came from a Halloween store's clearance bin. He's got on a baseball cap, sunglasses that are about 3 sizes too big for his face, and, I kid you not, a fake mustache. What the hell are you wearing? I ask, staring at him like he just announced he's joining the circus. It's a disguise, Frank says, adjusting the mustache, which immediately starts peeling off on one side. We're doing surveillance. We need to blend in. Look inconspicuous. Frank, you look like a pedophile at a playground. Nobody's going to believe that's real. It cost me $12 at the pharmacy. It's plenty real. He tries to press the mustache back onto his upper lip, but it's fighting a losing battle against gravity and poor adhesive. Besides, you want to talk. You're wearing a shirt that says, "World's Best Grandpa," and you don't even have grandkids. Claire gave me this shirt. I'm being supportive of her future plans. You look like you're about to attend a barbecue, not conduct surveillance on your son-in-law. We bicker about our respective fashion choices for another 5 minutes before I remind Frank that we're supposed to be professionals here, which makes us both laugh, because we're about as professional as a couple of raccoons trying to operate heavy machinery. The plan, and I use that term loosely, is to follow Mason from his office to wherever he goes on Tuesday afternoons. According to Claire, he leaves work early every Tuesday for client meetings, which is apparently code for visiting someone who looks like your dead mother-in-law at a cabin. But we need proof. We need to see it with our own eyes because right now, all I have is circumstantial evidence and a growing certainty that I'm either solving a mystery or having a spectacular mental breakdown. We stake out Mason's office building, which is one of those modern glass structures downtown that looks like a PlayStation 4 standing on its end. Frank and I are parked across the street in my car, which is making concerning rattling noises that suggest it might be planning its own retirement soon. "There," Frank says, pointing. His mustache has fallen off completely now and is sitting on the dashboard like a dead caterpillar. That's him, right? Sure enough, Mason emerges from the building at exactly 2:30, looking like he just walked off the set of a cologne commercial. He's checking his phone, presumably the one I violated extensively, and heading toward his car with the kind of purposeful stride that suggests he's got somewhere to be and someone to meet. "Follow him," Frank says, like we're in some kind of cop drama, and he's the grizzled veteran teaching the rookie the ropes. "I know how to follow someone, Frank. I'm not an idiot. You called me at 7 in the morning to help you spy on your daughter's husband. I'm questioning a lot of your life choices right now." Fair point. I start my car, which responds by making a noise like a dying walrus, and pull out into traffic about 3 cars behind Mason. Frank has somehow produced a pair of binoculars from his jacket, different from mine, significantly newer, probably actually functional, and is peering through them like we're on some kind of safari. "Not so close," Frank hisses. "You're going to spook him." I'm literally 4 cars behind him. He can't even see us. That's what you think. I've been made plenty of times during surveillance because some rookie got too close. Stay back. Be patient. We follow Mason through downtown, onto the highway, and then, just as I suspected, toward the county roads that lead to the Lake District where my old cabin is. My heart starts pounding harder than it has any right to at my age. This is it. This is confirmation. Mason is heading exactly where I thought he was heading. He's going to the cabin. I say, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turn white. Or he's going fishing, Frank offers, but even he doesn't sound convinced. Could be a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Not after finding those photos. We follow Mason for another 20 minutes, hanging back far enough that he won't notice us, but close enough that we don't lose him. Frank keeps providing unnecessary commentary about proper surveillance techniques, most of which I ignore because he's been retired long enough that he's probably forgotten half of what he learned anyway. Finally, Mason turns onto a dirt road. The same dirt road that leads to my old cabin. The same dirt road I drove down 1,000 times with Laura in the passenger seat, arguing about directions or what to have for dinner or whether we needed to stop for groceries. That's the road, I say quietly. That's the road to the cabin. Frank lowers his binoculars and looks at me. For once, he's not making jokes or complaining about his wife or his garage or anything else. He just looks serious, concerned, maybe even a little worried about what we're going to find. "You sure you want to do this?" he asks. "Because once we go down there, once we see whatever's happening, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow it." I think about Claire, about her happiness, her marriage, her future. I think about Laura and the life we had and the funeral I attended and the grief I've been carrying for 5 years. I think about Mason and his stupid perfect hair and his cologne and his locked phone with messages from someone who's supposed to be dead. "I'm sure," I say, and I turn onto the dirt road. We park about a quarter mile away from the cabin, hidden behind some trees that have grown taller since I last saw them. Frank grabs his binoculars. His mustache is now completely lost somewhere in my car, probably under the seat with old receipts and regret, and we make our way through the woods like a couple of geriatric commandos on our worst mission yet. And that's when we see it. Mason's car parked outside the cabin. Mason himself, standing by the door, holding a bouquet of flowers that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. The door opens, and out walks Laura, or someone who looks exactly like her. Same height, same build, same way of moving that I'd recognize anywhere, because I spent 38 years watching her move through the world. Holy shit, Frank whispers. Yeah, holy shit indeed. I've seen a lot of weird things in my life. I once watched a man at the grocery store argue with a cantaloupe for 10 minutes. I've witnessed my neighbor try to mow his lawn during a thunderstorm because he didn't want to fall behind on his schedule. I've even seen Frank try to assemble IKEA furniture sober, which resulted in something that looked less like a bookshelf and more like a modern art installation about human suffering. But watching my dead wife walk out of a cabin to greet my son-in-law with a hug that lasts way too long, that takes the cake, eats the cake, and then asks for seconds. Tell me you're seeing this too. I whisper to Frank, because at this point I'm about 50-50 on whether I'm actually witnessing this or having some kind of stress-induced hallucination brought on by too much coffee and not enough sleep. I'm seeing it, Frank confirms, his binoculars pressed so hard against his face that he's probably going to have circular marks around his eyes for the next week. And I gotta tell you, buddy, that's either your wife's twin, or the best damn makeup job I've ever seen. Through the binoculars, the ones I finally wrestled away from Frank because they're significantly better than my 1987 birdwatching special, I watch this woman who looks disturbingly like Laura laugh at something Mason says. It's her laugh, the same one I heard for 38 years. The same one that used to echo through our house when she found something genuinely funny, which wasn't often because Laura had high standards for comedy and I had dad jokes. She's wearing jeans and a blue sweater. Her hair shorter than Laura used to wear it, but styled in a way that's definitely intentional and probably cost money at an actual salon. She touches Mason's arm while she talks, casual and familiar, like they've done this before. Multiple times. Every Tuesday, apparently. We need to get closer, I say, already moving before Frank can protest. Bad idea, Frank hisses, grabbing my arm. Very bad idea. We should observe from a distance, gather intel, maybe take some photos for evidence. Frank, that's either my wife who faked her death, or someone impersonating my wife to seduce my daughter's husband. Either way, I'm not just going to crouch in the bushes like some kind of perverted woodland creature. I'm going up there. At least let me do it, Frank argues, his voice taking on that reasonable tone he probably used when trying to talk drunk people out of bad decisions. You're too emotionally involved. You'll blow our cover. I'll go up, pretend I'm lost, ask for directions. You're not pretending to be lost without your mustache. You look too conspicuous now. I look distinguished. You look like someone's uncle who brings conspiracy theories to Thanksgiving dinner. We're still bickering in urgent whispers when Mason and the Laura lookalike disappear into the cabin, closing the door behind them. The windows are covered with curtains I don't recognize, which means whoever's living here has redecorated since I sold the place. Frank and I crouch behind a tree that's definitely not wide enough to hide both of us, which means we're basically just two old guys in the woods pretending we're invisible. If anyone looks out the window right now, we're screwed. What now? Frank asks. Now we wait. See how long he stays. See if we can get a better look at her when they come back out. And if they don't come back out for hours? You planning to camp out here? Because I didn't bring snacks and my knees are already starting to hate me. He's got a point. My knees aren't exactly thrilled with this situation either. Crouching in the woods at 63 is significantly less comfortable than it would have been at 23 or even 43. Everything hurts. My back is already starting to protest, and I'm pretty sure something just crawled over my shoe. 20 minutes pass. My legs are cramping. Frank has eaten an entire pack of mints he found in his pocket and is now complaining about how they're making him thirsty. I'm starting to think this whole plan was a terrible idea when the cabin door finally opens. Mason emerges first, looking relaxed and happy in a way that makes me want to punch him in his perfect face. Then she appears, and in the better light, I can see her more clearly. Holy mother of, Frank starts. Don't say it. I cut him off. But he's right. Up close. Well, as close as we can get while hiding behind inadequate foliage. This woman isn't just similar to Laura. She is Laura. We're close enough that I can't tell the difference. Same nose, same mouth, same way of holding her shoulders slightly back, like she's perpetually ready to argue with someone. She hands Mason something. Looks like a folder or envelope, and says something that makes him laugh. He kisses her on the cheek. On the cheek. My son-in-law just kissed someone who looks exactly like my dead wife on the cheek, and I'm crouched in the woods with Frank witnessing what might be the most bizarre family drama in human history. Then she speaks. Her voice carries across the clearing, and my heart stops completely. See you next week, darling. Same time. Darling. She called him darling, just like in the texts. Frank looks at me, his expression somewhere between shocked and impressed. Well, he says quietly, at least we know she's real. That's something. That's not Laura. I say, but I'm not even convincing myself. Can't be Laura. Laura's dead. We buried her. Did we? Frank asks. Because that woman right there looks pretty alive to me. I give Mason exactly 24 hours to come clean on his own, which he doesn't, because apparently honesty is a concept he's only vaguely familiar with, like flossing or reading terms and conditions before clicking I agree. Wednesday afternoon, I invite him over under the pretense of needing help with my computer issues, which is only partially a lie because I do have computer issues, mainly that I used it to violate his privacy and possibly several federal laws. He shows up wearing khakis and a polo shirt like he's about to sell me insurance, carrying his laptop because he thinks I actually need tech support. The irony would be hilarious if I wasn't so angry I could spit nails. Thanks for coming, Mason, I say, gesturing for him to sit at my kitchen table. Can I get you some coffee? Sure, Mr. Brennan. Thanks. He's using that voice people use when they think they're talking to someone who's technologically incompetent and possibly senile. So what's the problem with your computer? Oh, the computer's fine, I say, setting down a cup of coffee in front of him. It's working great, actually. Helped me discover all sorts of interesting things. Like, for instance, photos from your phone. The color drains from Mason's face faster than water down a broken garbage disposal. His hand freezes halfway to the coffee cup, and I swear I can actually see the moment his brain short-circuits trying to figure out how to spin this. What? I don't. My phone was here, but I didn't give you permission to. Permission? I laugh, and it comes out harsh enough that Mason flinches. You're sleeping with someone who looks exactly like my dead wife, and you want to talk about permission? That's rich, kid. That's really rich. Sir, I think you're confused. Grief can make you see things, make you imagine. Buddy, I interrupt, leaning forward on the table. I've seen tax forms scarier than you. Don't try to gaslight me. I'm old, not stupid. There's a difference. Mason's practically vibrating with anxiety now, his leg bouncing under the table like he's trying to tap out Morse code for help me. Sweat is forming on his forehead, and I'm pretty sure if I had any houseplants, he could water them just by standing near them. Mr. Brennan, I can explain. Then explain. Because right now, the way I see it, you've been having an affair with someone who's either impersonating my deceased wife or my deceased wife, and I can't decide which option makes me want to strangle you more. He takes a shaky breath, and I can see him cycling through his options. Deny everything, run away, fake a heart attack. Instead, he does something I don't expect. He deflates completely, shoulders slumping like someone let all the air out of his ego. Her name is Lucy, he says quietly, staring at his untouched coffee. I met her at a grief support group 6 months ago. She introduced herself as Laura, said she'd been on a spiritual retreat after faking her death to escape some dangerous situation. I know how it sounds, but she knew things. Personal things about your family. About you. A spiritual retreat. I can feel my blood pressure rising to levels that would concern my doctor. A spiritual retreat. And you bought that? You didn't think to maybe fact-check this information? Google her? Ask literally anyone. I thought fact-checking was more of a journalist thing. Mason mumbles, and I have to grip the edge of the table to keep from throwing my coffee at him. It's a human thing, Mason. It's called using your brain. It's called not being a complete. I stop myself, take a breath, count to 5 because 10 seems excessive. Did you ever think about what this would do to Claire? To our family? Did you think at all? Or were you too busy being seduced by a woman claiming to be your mother-in-law? She's not. We weren't. It wasn't like that. Mason's face is bright red now, and he's talking too fast, words tumbling over each other. She said she needed help, that she couldn't reveal herself yet, that there were people looking for her. She asked me to keep it secret just until she could figure things out. I was trying to help. Help? I stand up because sitting is no longer containing my rage. You were helping by sneaking around with her every Tuesday? By kissing her outside a cabin? By calling her darling in text messages? Those were. I was just being friendly. If stupidity were a crime, Mason, you'd get life without parole. No chance of parole. They'd throw away the key and use your case as a warning to others. Mason looks like he might actually cry, which would normally make me feel bad, except I'm too busy being furious and confused and trying to figure out who the hell Lucy is and why she's pretending to be my dead wife. I'm sorry, he whispers. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah, well, the road to hell is paved with idiots who thought they were doing the right thing. I sit back down, suddenly exhausted. We're going to fix this. Together. And then you're going to tell Claire everything. Because I'm not keeping this secret for you. She'll leave me. Probably. But that's what happens when you make catastrophically stupid decisions. Mason is still sitting at my kitchen table looking like a kicked puppy who just realized he ate homework that wasn't his to eat. And I'm pacing back and forth trying to decide if I should call Claire right now or wait until I have more information. Part of me wants to protect my daughter from the truth for as long as possible, and the other part of me, the angry, vindictive part, wants to call her immediately just to watch Mason squirm. I'm about to make this decision when there's a knock at my door. Not Claire's knock. Not Frank's knock. This one is measured, calm, almost polite. The kind of knock that suggests the person on the other side is either very civilized or very dangerous. And honestly, at this point in my week, it could go either way. Mason's head snaps up, his eyes going wide with panic. That might be. Don't answer it. Please don't answer it. Oh, I'm absolutely answering it. I say, already heading for the door. At this point, I don't care if it's the FBI, the IRS, or Girl Scouts selling cookies. Actually, I hope it's Girl Scouts. I could use some thin mints to get through this nightmare. I open the door, and there she is. Laura. Or Lucy. Or whoever the hell this woman is who's been pretending to be my deceased wife and turning my retirement into a psychological thriller I never asked to be part of. She's standing on my porch holding a basket of muffins like she's some kind of suburban Martha Stewart who definitely hasn't been catfishing my son-in-law and impersonating dead people. The muffins smell like blueberries and fresh-baked lies. Hello, Richard, she says, and her voice is Laura's voice, but not quite. Like someone doing a really good impression, but missing some essential quality I can't quite name. I think we need to talk. I stare at her, then at the muffins, then back at her. My brain is doing that thing where it tries to process too much information at once and just sort of gives up and starts playing elevator music instead. Murderers don't bake, right? I finally say, which is possibly the stupidest thing I've ever said. And I once told a cop that I couldn't have been speeding because my car wasn't capable of going that fast, which was both a lie and an insult to my own vehicle. She smiles, Laura's smile, but different, and walks past me into my house without invitation, which is either incredibly rude or incredibly brave considering I'm still debating whether to call the police, a priest, or a psychiatric hospital. Mason has gone completely white. Like printer paper white. The kind of white that suggests his soul has left his body and is probably halfway to Mexico by now, leaving just an empty shell of a man who made terrible life choices. Lucy, he croaks. What are you doing here? Cleaning up your mess, apparently, Lucy says, setting the muffins down on my kitchen counter with the kind of confidence that suggests she's done this before. Done what, exactly, I'm not sure. Brought baked goods to people she's been deceiving? Showed up uninvited to explain complicated fraud schemes? Richard, I know you have questions. Questions? I laugh, and it comes out slightly unhinged. Lady, I have more than questions. I have concerns. I have theories. I have a desperate need to understand why you look exactly like my dead wife, and have been playing house with my daughter's husband at my old lake cabin. Start talking, and it better be good, because I'm about 2 seconds away from calling every law enforcement agency I can think of. She sits down at my kitchen table like we're about to have a casual chat about the weather, not a confrontation about identity theft and possible fraud. Mason looks like he wants to melt into the floor. I remain standing because sitting would imply I'm comfortable with this situation, and I am absolutely not comfortable. My name is Lucy Brennan, she begins, and that last name hits me like a slap. I'm Laura's twin sister. Identical twin. And before you say you didn't know Laura had a twin, That's because we were separated as children and placed in different families through a very complicated situation involving witness protection. I open my mouth. Close it. Open it again. I must look like a fish that's having an existential crisis. Witness protection. Twin sister. You expect me to believe. I don't expect you to believe anything. Lucy interrupts calmly. I'm just telling you the truth. Laura and I were switched at various points in our lives as part of a protection program involving our biological father's testimony against a fraud ring. Your late business partner, Harold Mitchell, was part of that ring. Harold. The name lands like a brick through a window. Harold Mitchell, my business partner for 15 years until he died in a car accident 3 years ago. Harold, who always seemed to have money problems despite our business doing well. Harold, who Laura never liked and never trusted. You're telling me Harold was involved in fraud? I sit down now because my legs have decided they're done supporting my weight during this conversation. And that somehow involves you pretending to be Laura? I wasn't pretending to be Laura, Lucy says. I was trying to expose the people Harold was working with. They're still operating, still running scams, and they've been targeting families connected to the original case, including yours. I needed access to information, connections, anything that could help me build a case against them. So you seduced my son-in-law. I gesture at Mason, who looks like he wishes he could disappear into another dimension. That was your brilliant plan. I didn't seduce anyone, Lucy says sharply. Mason approached me at a grief support group. I saw an opportunity to get close to your family without revealing who I really was. I told him I was Laura, back from hiding, and he believed me because she glances at Mason with something that might be pity or might be contempt. He's not very good at critical thinking. Hey, Mason protests weakly, but nobody pays attention to him. This is insane, I say, rubbing my temples where a headache is forming that's going to require prescription medication and possibly a vacation. This sounds like a plot from a daytime TV show. A bad daytime TV show. The kind that gets canceled after one season. I know how it sounds, Lucy says. But it's the truth. I have documentation. Proof. Everything you need to verify what I'm saying. I was going to come to you eventually, but I needed more time to gather evidence. And then Mason complicated things by being an idiot, I suggest. I was going to say emotionally vulnerable and easily manipulated. But yes, essentially an idiot. The front door bursts open. I really need to start locking that thing. And Frank barges in, slightly out of breath, holding something in his hand that takes me a moment to recognize as his fake mustache from yesterday's surveillance adventure. I knew it. Frank announces triumphantly, waving the mustache like a trophy. I told you she was trouble. I could sense it. 30 years on the force, you develop instincts about these things. Frank, you thought she was a ghost. A troublesome ghost. I was partially right. He notices Lucy sitting at my table and points at her dramatically. You? I saw you at the cabin. You're the Laura imposter. I'm not an imposter, Lucy says with impressive patience. I'm Laura's identical twin sister, and I'm trying to expose a fraud ring. Frank blinks. Processes. Blinks again. Well, that's new information. You think. I mutter. Mason, who has been silent for the past several minutes, suddenly makes a small whimpering sound. We all turn to look at him just in time to see his eyes roll back in his head. He doesn't faint metaphorically or dramatically. He just goes down like a sack of potatoes, sliding off his chair and hitting my kitchen floor with a thud that makes me wince, because that's definitely going to bruise. Oh, for crying out loud. I sigh, staring at my unconscious son-in-law sprawled on my linoleum. Frank, get some water. Lucy, I don't suppose those muffins have any magical properties that make complicated family situations less complicated? They're just blueberries, Lucy says apologetically. Figures, I say. Nothing in my life can be simple. Not even the baked goods. Frank returns with water, and we manage to revive Mason, who comes to looking confused and embarrassed, which is probably how he should look given the circumstances. He sits on my floor, leaning against the cabinet, holding a wet dishcloth to his forehead while the three of us, me, Frank, and the woman who may or may not be my dead wife's twin sister, stand around trying to figure out what the hell happens next. So, Frank says, breaking the awkward silence. Anyone want a muffin? Because they actually smell pretty good, and I skipped breakfast. I look at Lucy, at Frank, at Mason on my floor, at the basket of muffins that started this whole conversation. Sure, I say because at this point, why not? Let's have muffins while we discuss fraud rings and witness protection and whatever other insanity is about to get revealed. This is my life now. This is what retirement looks like. Lucy reaches for the basket, and I notice her hands are shaking slightly. For the first time since she walked through my door, she looks uncertain. Human. Less like a con artist, and more like someone who's in over her head in a situation that got away from them. For what it's worth, she says quietly, handing me a muffin, Laura really loved you. She talked about you all the time. That's how I knew so much. How I could pretend. She was my sister, and I miss her too. And just like that, my anger deflates a little. Not completely. I'm still furious about the deception, about Mason, about all of it. But underneath the anger, there's grief. Old grief, meeting new complications, and somewhere in all of this mess, the memory of a woman I loved who apparently had a whole secret twin sister I never knew about. The muffins better be good. I say, because I don't know what else to say. They are. They're actually pretty damn good. Which somehow makes everything worse. We're halfway through the muffins, which are criminally delicious for being brought by someone who's been living a lie. When Lucy drops the next bomb in what's becoming a Michael Bay film of revelations. There's something else you need to know, she says, picking at her muffin like she's trying to disarm it. About Laura. About the funeral. I freeze with a piece of muffin halfway to my mouth. What about the funeral? Lucy takes a deep breath, the kind people take before they say something that's going to fundamentally alter someone's understanding of reality. I've seen that breath before. It's the same one the doctor took before telling me Laura had stage 4 cancer. The same one the funeral director took when going over casket options. Nothing good ever follows that breath. Laura wasn't dead when you buried her, Lucy says. Or rather, you didn't bury Laura. You buried someone else. The muffin falls from my hand. Just drops straight onto my kitchen table, crumbling into pieces that seem weirdly symbolic of my mental state right now. Frank stops mid-chew, his mouth hanging open in a way that would be comical if this wasn't the most insane thing I've ever heard. Excuse me. I manage to say, though my voice sounds like it's coming from very far away, possibly from another dimension where things make sense. A body double? You're telling me I attended a funeral for a body double? It was the only way to protect her, Lucy says quickly, her words tumbling out like she's been holding them back for 5 years, and they're finally breaking free. The money laundering network Harold was involved with. They were closing in on Laura. She knew too much, had seen too much. Harold tried to keep her out of it. But once you're in that world, there's no clean exit. They threatened her. Threatened you. Threatened Claire. I blink so hard I'm pretty sure I nearly sprain an eyelid. My vision goes blurry for a second, and I have to grip the edge of the table to keep myself grounded in reality, which is apparently more flexible than I previously understood. So let me get this straight. I say slowly, like I'm explaining something to a child except the child is me, and I'm trying to understand my own life. My business partner Harold was running a money laundering scheme. Laura found out. Bad people wanted her dead. So she faked her death, using a body double, and let us, believe she was gone for 5 years. She didn't want to, Lucy insists. She was protecting you. If they knew she was alive, they would have come after you to get to her. The only way to keep everyone safe was to make her disappear completely. And where exactly has she been disappearing to? Frank asks, finally swallowing his muffin. Because I'm assuming she hasn't been living at the cabin this whole time, or Richard would have noticed when he sold it. She's been in protective custody. Different locations, different identities. The fraud ring is bigger than you know. It's not just money laundering. It's identity theft, insurance fraud, offshore accounts. Harold was small time compared to the people running it. When he died in a car accident, I interrupt. Very convenient car accident. Are you telling me that wasn't actually an accident? Lucy's silence is answer enough. Jesus Christ, I breathe. They killed him. They killed him because he was getting sloppy, making mistakes, drawing attention. And Laura knew all of this. She'd seen documents, overheard conversations. She was the loose end they needed to tie up. Mason, still sitting on my floor like a confused toddler, finally speaks up. So when you said you were Laura coming back from a spiritual retreat, that was a cover story to explain why I looked exactly like a dead woman. Lucy finishes. I needed access to Richard's old files, his business records, anything that could help build a case against the people who are still operating. The FBI has been working on this for years, but they need concrete evidence. Evidence that might still be in this house. In my house. I look around my kitchen like secret documents are going to spontaneously materialize from behind my coffee maker. Lady, I cleaned out all of Harold's stuff years ago. Threw most of it away. If there was evidence, it's long gone. Not the physical files, Lucy says. The digital ones. Harold backed everything up to a shared cloud server. He gave Laura the login information years ago, probably as insurance in case his partners turned on him. She never told you because she didn't want to drag you into it. But now we need it. The FBI needs it. So, to summarize what I've learned in the past 15 minutes, my wife is alive. My business partner was murdered by the mob or something equally terrifying. My son-in-law is an idiot of legendary proportions, and my emotional stability is somewhere between midlife crisis and soap opera finale with a twist ending nobody asked for. Where is she? I ask, and my voice cracks on the question. Where's Laura? Is she safe? Can I see her? Lucy's expression softens, and for the first time since she walked through my door, I see genuine emotion in her eyes. Sympathy, maybe even sadness. She wants to see you. Desperately. But we have to be careful. If the wrong people find out she's alive, if they track her location, I don't care about the wrong people. I'm standing now, my chair scraping back so hard it nearly falls over. My wife has been alive for 5 years, and nobody told me. I mourned her. I gave away her clothes. I sold our cabin because I couldn't stand being there without her. And you're telling me it was all what? Theater? A protection program? Well, congratulations. You protected me right into 5 years of grief and loneliness. Richard, Lucy starts, but I'm not done. No, you don't get to Richard me. You don't get to show up with muffins and explanations and expect me to just accept this. I want to talk to someone official, someone with a badge. Someone who can verify that this isn't just an elaborate scam to get Harold's files, or whatever the hell you're actually after. I can arrange that, a voice says from my doorway, and we all turn to see a woman in her 40s standing there with a badge clipped to her belt and an expression that suggests she's seen too much weird stuff to be surprised by anything anymore. Detective Marian Torres, FBI. And before you ask, yes, I've been listening to this entire conversation. You really should lock your door, Mr. Brennan. Frank jumps so hard he drops his muffin. Mason makes another whimpering sound. Lucy doesn't look surprised, which means she either knew the detective was coming or has the world's best poker face. FBI. I say, because apparently I've lost the ability to form complex sentences. The actual FBI? The actual FBI, Detective Torres confirms, walking into my kitchen like she owns it. She's got that no-nonsense energy that all good cops have, the kind that makes you want to confess to crimes you didn't commit just to avoid disappointing her. I've been working Laura's case for 3 years. Lucy here has been serving as a confidential informant, helping us build a case against the remaining members of the fraud ring. So this is all real, I say flatly. This whole insane story is actually real. Unfortunately, yes. Detective Torres pulls out a chair and sits down without being invited, which seems to be a theme today. And I apologize for the unorthodox approach. We would have brought you in sooner, but Laura was adamant about keeping you out of it for your own safety. She only agreed to let Lucy make contact after we learned the organization was planning to audit Harold's old business connections, including you. They're coming after me? My voice goes up about 3 octaves. Why am I just hearing about this now? Because we needed to verify you didn't know anything first, Torres says bluntly. No offense, but you could have been complicit. We had to rule that out before bringing you into the investigation. I ran an accounting firm. I protest. The most exciting thing I ever did was find a miscalculation in someone's expense report. I didn't launder money. I didn't know Harold was laundering money. I'm boring. I'm so boring that my idea of a wild Friday night is watching Jeopardy and going to bed at 9:30. We know that now, Torres says, and there might be a hint of amusement in her eyes. Which is why we're here. We need your help, Mr. Brennan. And Laura needs your help. Laura. I sink back into my chair, suddenly exhausted. My wife. Who's alive? Who's been alive this whole time while I've been eating microwave dinners and talking to her picture like a crazy person? She never stopped loving you, Lucy says quietly. Everything she did to protect you and Claire. You have to believe that. I look at her. This woman who's my wife's identical twin, who I didn't know existed until an hour ago. And then at Detective Torres with her badge and her serious face. And then at Frank who's still holding half a muffin like he's not sure if he's allowed to finish it during a federal investigation. And finally at Mason on my floor looking like he wishes he'd never been born. When can I see her? I ask. When can I see my wife? Detective Torres exchanges a glance with Lucy. Soon. But first, we need those files. And we need to make sure it's safe. The people we're dealing with, they don't leave loose ends. Like Harold, I say. Like Harold, Torres confirms. So we do this carefully, methodically, and above all, quietly. No telling Claire yet. No telling anyone. Can you do that? I think about my daughter, about her happiness, about the life she's building with the idiot currently sitting on my kitchen floor. I think about Laura, alive somewhere, hiding, waiting. I think about 5 years of grief that might have been unnecessary, and I feel something shift inside me. Not quite anger anymore. Not quite relief. Something in between that I don't have a name for. Yeah, I say finally. I can do that. But Detective Torres, when this is over, when Laura's safe and we've caught these bastards, my wife and I are going to have a very long conversation about communication and trust and the appropriate uses of fake funerals. Torres almost smiles. That's fair, Mr. Brennan. That's very fair. Frank raises his hand like we're in school. So can I finish this muffin, or is it evidence? Detective Torres decides we're all going to the cabin because apparently my life has become a made-for-TV movie, and we're heading toward the dramatic climax where everything gets resolved in one convenient location. I half expect someone to show up with a camera crew and ask me to sign a release form. The drive there is surreal. I'm in my car with Frank riding shotgun, following Torres and Lucy in an unmarked sedan that screams federal agent, trying not to look like a federal agent, so loudly it might as well have a siren. Mason is in the back seat of my car, still looking vaguely nauseous and making small whimpering sounds every time we hit a bump. I've never been more aware of how terrible my car's suspension is. You okay back there, champ? Frank asks, turning around to look at Mason with all the sympathy of a shark observing a wounded seal. I think I'm having a panic attack, Mason whispers. Yeah, that tracks, Frank says, turning back around. Breathe into a paper bag or something. We don't have time for you to pass out again. I don't have a paper bag. Then suffer quietly. I would tell Frank to be nicer, but honestly, I'm still processing the fact that my wife is alive, and I'm about to see her for the first time in 5 years, and Mason's emotional state is pretty low on my priority list right now. Somewhere between remember to buy milk and reorganize sock drawer. The cabin comes into view, and my heart does this weird stuttering thing that makes me wonder if I should have brought my blood pressure medication. It looks the same as I remember. Same blue fence I painted, same porch where Laura and I used to drink morning coffee. Same trees that are slightly taller now, because that's what trees do when you ignore them for 5 years. There's a car parked outside that I don't recognize. A sensible sedan that Laura would have approved of because she always said my taste in vehicles was aggressively mediocre. Detective Torres parks and gets out, immediately going into what I assume is cop mode, scanning the area, checking her phone, talking into her radio in that low-voice law enforcement people use when they're coordinating things. Lucy gets out more slowly, looking at me through the windshield with an expression that might be apologetic or might be nervous. Hard to tell. Everyone stays calm. Torres announces once we're all standing in front of the cabin like the world's most dysfunctional intervention group. Mr. Brennan, your wife is inside. She's aware you're coming. She's nervous. She's nervous? I laugh, and it comes out slightly unhinged. She's been alive for 5 years and I thought she was dead, but she's nervous? That's precious. Richard, Lucy starts, but I hold up my hand. No, I don't want to hear it. I just want to see my wife and figure out if I'm going to hug her or yell at her or possibly both simultaneously. Torres nods and walks up to the cabin door. She knocks, a specific pattern that's probably some kind of code, and the door opens. And there she is. Laura. Not Lucy pretending to be Laura. Not a photo on Mason's phone. Not a ghost or a hallucination or a stress-induced breakdown. Laura, my wife, alive. Standing in the doorway of our old cabin wearing jeans and a sweater I've never seen before, her hair shorter than she used to wear it, a few more lines around her eyes, but unmistakably, undeniably her. We stare at each other for what feels like 17 hours, but is probably only about 10 seconds. My brain is trying to process too many emotions at once. Relief, anger, joy, betrayal, love, confusion. And it's like someone dumped an entire emotional buffet on my plate and expected me to eat it all at once without choking. Hi, she says, and her voice is exactly the same. The same voice that used to tell me I was an idiot for trying to fix the washing machine myself. The same voice that sang off-key in the shower. The same voice I thought I'd never hear again. Hi. I repeat. Hi? That's what you're going with. Hi. I didn't know what else to say. She steps out onto the porch, and I can see she's shaking slightly. Richard, You died. I interrupt, and my voice breaks on the word. You died, Laura. I buried you. I gave a eulogy. I cried at your funeral. Claire cried. We mourned you. And you were what? Living in protective custody? Starting a new life? Getting a new haircut? It wasn't like that. She takes a step toward me, then stops like she's not sure if she's allowed. I wanted to tell you. Every day, I wanted to tell you. But they said if you knew, if anyone knew, you'd be in danger. The people Harold was involved with, they would have killed you to get to me. So you let me think you were dead instead. I'm not yelling. I'm surprised I'm not yelling. My voice is quiet, controlled, which somehow feels worse. That was the better option. It was the only option that kept you alive. Tears are running down her face now, and part of me, the part that still loves her despite everything, wants to wipe them away. The other part wants to keep standing here, maintaining this distance, because if I get too close I might fall apart completely. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Detective Torres clears her throat. Mr. Brennan, I know this is difficult, but we need to verify identity officially. For the record, she pulls out some kind of fingerprint scanner that looks like it belongs in a science fiction movie, and Laura holds out her hand without being asked. The scanner beeps. Torres checks something on her phone, then nods. Confirmed. This is Laura Marie Brennan, your wife. Officially verified via fingerprints that match her original records. Well, that's something, Frank mutters. At least we're not dealing with a clone situation. That would be awkward. Laura looks past me to the group assembled in her old cabin's yard. She sees Lucy and nods slightly. Then she sees Mason, and her expression shifts to something between confusion and disgust. Why is Claire's husband here? She asks. Long story, I say. Short version. He's an idiot who thought your sister was you and has been secretly meeting her here every Tuesday, because he believed you faked your death for a spiritual retreat, which, in hindsight, is only slightly less believable than the actual truth. Laura blinks, processes, turns to look at Mason with an expression that could melt steel. You've been doing what? Mason, to his credit or possibly his extreme stupidity, actually tries to explain. I thought I was helping. Lucy said she was you, and she needed. My sister told you she was me, your mother-in-law, and you didn't think that was weird? Laura's voice has that quality it used to get when she was about to demolish someone verbally. I've missed that voice. You didn't think to mention to your wife that her supposedly dead mother was alive and asking you to meet her secretly? I was confused. Mason protests weakly. You're always confused, Frank adds helpfully. It's kind of your thing. Detective Torres steps in before Laura can tear into Mason further, which is probably for the best, because I'm not sure my heart can handle watching my wife verbally destroy my son-in-law while also processing the fact that she's alive. We need to focus. The people who wanted Laura dead, they're still out there. We've made arrests, but there are more. We need those files from Harold's cloud server. Laura looks at me, and I see a flash of the woman I married. Determined, strong, still terrified but hiding it well. I never wanted you involved in this, Richard. Harold kept everything separate from you deliberately. He knew you were honest. Too honest for what he was doing. But he kept backups of everything. Insurance policy against his partners. He gave me the login information before he died. Made me promise to use it if anything happened to him. And then something did happen to him. I say, they killed him. They killed him because he was going to turn witness, Laura confirms. And I was the only one who knew where the evidence was. So I had to disappear. Had to make them think the threat was gone. She pauses. I'm sorry I let you think I was gone too. I'm sorry for all of it. I stand there, heart conflicted between love and fury and this strange urge to laugh, because the absurdity of this entire situation is so overwhelming that laughing seems like the only reasonable response. My wife faked her death. My business partner was murdered by mobsters. My son-in-law has been meeting my dead wife's twin sister at our old cabin. This is my life. This is what retirement looks like. You could have just texted me. I finally say, and I can hear the edge of hysteria in my voice trying to masquerade as humor. Laura laughs through her tears. Actually laughs? And it's such a familiar sound that something in my chest cracks up. Detective Torres's radio crackles, and she steps away to answer it. When she comes back, she's all business. We've got movement on the suspects. 3 arrests made in the past hour based on preliminary evidence. We need those files now to make everything stick. Laura nods and pulls out a piece of paper from her pocket. Here's the login information. Everything Harold backed up is there. Transactions, communications, client lists. Everything you need. Torres takes the paper and immediately gets on her phone, relaying information to someone. Within minutes, there are more cars pulling up, actual FBI agents with windbreakers that say FBI on them because subtlety is apparently not required anymore. The next hour is a blur of activity. Agents going in and out of the cabin. Torres coordinating arrests. Someone setting up a laptop to access Harold's files. Frank eating another muffin that Lucy apparently brought multiple baskets of. Mason sitting on the porch steps looking like he's contemplating every life choice that led him to this moment. And Laura and I just stand there, a few feet apart, not quite touching, not quite talking, just existing in each other's space for the first time in 5 years. Eventually, Torres comes back over. We've got what we need. The remaining members of the organization are being rounded up as we speak. This is over, Mrs. Brennan. You're safe now. You both are. She hands each of us a brochure. I look down at it. Trauma-Informed Therapy, a guide to processing complex grief and family reunification. Therapy brochures, I say flatly. The FBI gives out therapy brochures. Standard protocol for situations like this, Torres says without a trace of irony. You've both been through significant trauma. Professional help is recommended. Situations like this, Laura repeats. How many situations like this are there? More than you'd think. Less than would make a good reality TV show. Months later, I'm standing in a church watching my daughter renew her vows with the man who thought having a secret relationship with his supposedly dead mother-in-law was a reasonable life choice. The fact that this is happening at all is a testament to either Claire's capacity for forgiveness or her commitment to sunk costs, and I'm honestly not sure which. The therapy brochures Detective Torres gave us weren't just suggestions, they were requirements. Laura and I have been attending couples counseling with Dr. Patricia Henderson, a woman who has the patience of a saint and the ability to make both of us feel like we're crazy without actually saying we're crazy. It's a gift, really. She's helped us work through what she calls complex grief layered with betrayal trauma and existential confusion, which is therapists speak for, your marriage is a dumpster fire, but we can probably save it. The rebuilding process has been slow, awkward. There were a lot of conversations that started with, I can't believe you, and ended with one of us crying or both of us laughing because the alternative was screaming into the void. We've had to relearn each other. Laura's different now, harder in some ways, more cautious, with shadows in her eyes that weren't there before. I'm different too, apparently. According to Laura, I've become aggressively set in my ways and emotionally constipated even by retirement standards, which seems harsh but might be accurate. We're taking it slow. She moved back into the house 3 months ago, but she has her own room because Dr. Henderson said something about establishing boundaries and rebuilding intimacy gradually, which I think means we're basically roommates who used to be married and might be married again if we can figure out how to be in the same space without one of us bringing up the fake funeral. Claire found out the truth about 2 weeks after the cabin showdown. We sat her down. Me, Laura, and Detective Torres, because apparently we needed professional backup to tell my daughter that her mother wasn't actually dead and her husband was an idiot. Claire went through what Dr. Henderson would probably call the stages of grief in reverse, starting with disbelief, cycling through anger, and eventually landing on a kind of exhausted acceptance that her family is functionally insane. She almost left Mason. Should have left Mason, in my opinion. But I kept that opinion to myself because Dr. Henderson said something about supporting Claire's agency and avoiding patriarchal control patterns. So I bit my tongue and watched my daughter work through her own therapy with a different therapist, thank God, because having the whole family see the same therapist seemed like it would get complicated. Mason, for his part, has been doing what I can only describe as aggressive groveling. He quit his job and started working at a nonprofit that helps fraud victims, which Laura said was either genuine remorse or extremely calculated image rehabilitation. He goes to therapy 3 times a week. He deleted all his social media. He leaves his phone face up on the table during dinner to prove he has nothing to hide, which is honestly just sad at this point. But Claire decided to give him another chance, and they're renewing their vows today because apparently almost destroying your marriage through spectacular stupidity is grounds for a do-over ceremony. Laura thinks it's romantic. I think it's evidence that love makes people make questionable decisions, but I'm keeping that to myself because I've already used up my quota of cynical comments for the week. The church is small, intimate, filled with friends and family who don't know the full story of why we're here. The official explanation is that Claire and Mason wanted to recommit to their marriage with their full family present, which is technically true if you ignore all the fraud and fake deaths and FBI investigations. Laura's sitting next to me in the front pew, wearing a blue dress that makes her look almost exactly like she did at our wedding 38 years ago, except for the shorter hair and the lines around her eyes, and the general air of someone who's been through witness protection. She reaches over and takes my hand, and I let her, because despite everything, despite the anger and the grief and the 5 years of loneliness, I still love her. I'm still furious with her about half the time, and she's still frustrated with me for being emotionally unavailable and passive-aggressive about the whole death-faking thing, but we're working on it. Claire walks down the aisle looking radiant in a simple white dress, and Mason stands at the altar looking like a man who knows he doesn't deserve a second chance, but is grateful he's getting one anyway. The ceremony is short, sweet, and remarkably free of drama, which is a nice change of pace for our family. The reception is at some fancy venue Claire picked out that probably cost more than my first car. There's a DJ playing music that's too loud, food that's trying too hard to be fancy, and an open bar that's getting more action than it should at 4 in the afternoon. Frank is already 3 drinks in and telling anyone who'll listen about how he cracked the case of Laura's disappearance, conveniently leaving out the part where he thought she was a ghost and wore a fake mustache to a stakeout. When it's time for toasts, Frank stands up with a microphone and a confidence that can only come from whiskey and poor judgment. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, swaying slightly. "I've known Mason for about a year now, and in that time, I've learned that he's a man of many talents. He's good at his job. He's devoted to Claire, and he's exceptionally skilled at making catastrophically stupid decisions that involve federal investigations." The room goes silent. Claire looks mortified. Mason looks like he wants to dissolve into the floor. Laura squeezes my hand so hard I lose feeling in my fingers. But Frank continues, apparently immune to social cues. He's also a man who's willing to admit when he's wrong, who's willing to do the work, who's willing to go to therapy 3 times a week and work at a nonprofit and generally grovel like his life depends on it. And honestly, that's more than I can say for most men his age. So here's to Claire and Mason. May their second attempt at marriage be significantly less complicated than their first. And may Mason's phone stay in his pocket where it belongs. He raises his glass. The room erupts in confused applause because nobody knows what else to do. Claire is both laughing and crying. Mason looks like he's survived an execution he definitely deserved. "That might be the worst toast I've ever heard," Laura whispers to me. "That might be the worst toast anyone's ever heard." I correct her. It could qualify as hate speech. But we're both smiling. Can't help it. This is our life now. Weird, complicated, occasionally involving the FBI, but ours. Later, after the cake has been cut and the DJ has played Celebration twice for some reason, Laura and I sneak outside for some air. We're standing by the venue's garden, watching the sun set over what's probably someone's expensive landscaping, and she turns to me with that expression she gets when she's about to say something serious. "I know this hasn't been easy," she says quietly. "I know I hurt you. Hurt Claire. Hurt everyone by leaving the way I did. And I know that sorry isn't enough, will never be enough, but I need you to know that I thought about you every single day. Every morning, every night, wondering if you were okay, if you were eating properly, if you were taking your blood pressure medication. I wasn't, I admit. Eating properly, I mean. The medication I was pretty good about because I didn't want to die and prove you right about my cholesterol. She laughs. That same laugh I fell in love with decades ago, and leans against me. We're going to be okay, aren't we? Eventually. Eventually, I agree. Might take another few years of therapy and possibly some heavy medication, but yeah, we'll be okay. When people ask how we got back together, and they do ask, constantly, because apparently our story has become neighborhood gossip, I tell them, my wife ghosted me. Literally. She faked her death, joined witness protection, and then came back when the FBI wrapped up their investigation. You know, normal marriage stuff. Most people laugh because they think I'm joking. The ones who know the truth just nod sympathetically and change the subject, which I appreciate. Every Tuesday now, because apparently we're committed to keeping that day meaningful. Instead of Laura meeting Mason at the cabin and me spiraling into paranoid investigations, we have a standing date. Sometimes it's coffee at the diner. Sometimes it's a walk around the park. Sometimes it's just sitting in our living room, her reading a book while I watch whatever documentary Netflix is recommending, existing in the same space without the weight of secrets between us. And every Tuesday, I send Laura a text message that reads, "Still alive, still married, still annoyed." And she replies, without fail, "Still better looking than you." It's become our thing, our way of acknowledging everything that happened while also moving forward. Dr. Henderson says it's a healthy coping mechanism that demonstrates emotional growth, which means she approves but wishes we'd be less sarcastic about our trauma. Frank comes by every Sunday for coffee and to complain about how retirement is boring now that we're not investigating anything. Lucy visits once a month, always bringing baked goods and updates about the fraud case trials, which are apparently going well. Mason keeps his distance but sends awkward cards on holidays that say things like, "Thank you for not having me arrested," and "Hope you're both doing well. Sorry again about everything." Claire stops by twice a week, sometimes with Mason, sometimes without. She's found a new appreciation for our family's dysfunction, saying it's given her perspective on what a healthy marriage actually looks like, which I think is both a compliment and an insult, but I'll take it. Somewhere between laughter and disbelief, between anger and forgiveness, between Tuesday texts and therapy sessions and Frank's terrible toasts, I realize something that Dr. Henderson has been trying to get me to see for months. Life's crazy. Life's complicated. Life involves fake deaths and FBI investigations and son-in-laws who make spectacularly stupid decisions. But at least it's mine. At least it's ours. And somewhere in all this chaos, there's Laura, still annoying me, still making me laugh, still better looking than me even after everything we've been through. And honestly, that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.